right, for this episode of Mr. Nailsin's Wednesday Comics, again, only 2 titles, but titles in their series overall in their first volumes. These are Miller titles, who Miller is easily the best writer in comics today, but, well, nobody's perfect. So I've been digging into a lot of his titles, and turns out he's building it all up into a giant crossover within, within his titles again, that he's developed over the years. And I'm way behind on Nemesis. I'm reading the second volume. I didn't get to read the first one, which, well, that could be a problem. But it is interesting, and yes, sick to death of events and what in the mainstream titles, but it's kind of a rare thing to see that occur in independent titles and whatnot, and especially when it's all one guy doing it, it should be more concise, cohesive, and complete. So there's that. But the recent ones that I delved into was The Ambassadors and Nightclub. And for this episode, I thought I would just do an overview of these 6 issues and pit them against one another. So The Ambassadors, it was interesting because each issue had a different artist, and one of the high points was Travis Charest, or Charest, I don't know which one is which, who is just an amazing artist, but in order to achieve that level of excellence, it takes him a long time. And so it's been a while before since having seen any of his artwork and interior. So that was a big highlight in this series about the Ambassadors. Basically, it's this super genius woman who discovers how to create superpowers and offers it to a representative of these different nations, and sets them up to, perform these heroic deeds and all that sort of stuff. But our arch nemesis is her ex-husband, obviously. And so, of course, the culmination of it is this confrontation in the final issue. Each issue, you meet the new ambassador that's recruited, and they demonstrate their powers and all that sort of thing. And but little by little, the husband was plotting against them. And sure enough, then there's the big confrontation, there's betrayal and all this sort of thing. The strengths of it was the individual stories and how it played out, dialogue and whatnot, and that was some of the best parts of it. But the ultimate ending is just sort of oh, it looks terrible, how will they make it? And then the main leader, she represents South Korea, she just blasts the husband away, and that's it. Now, she does say, whoa, I didn't know it would go that way, I thought he would survive it and all that. But it's just, he never really had a chance at all. And there was no real clever means by which it resolved itself or anything. So it's just, she's awesome and stuff. So it will continue on into another volume. We'll see where that goes. And some of the elements of the main leader character, I think she could be led astray and become the villain. I don't think that'll happen, but that would be interesting to some extent. But it was a bit of a letdown. So I guess that already answers the question. Nightclub, which is very simple, and perhaps even more cohesive, because it really revolves around these 3 characters of these teenagers who become vampires, and they decide, hey, we got powers, we can be superheroes, and so they do. Then they run afoul of this band of evil vampires who are much older than them. And there's a lot of creepy visuals with them too. It's well done. And then they want to, either you serve us or we just kill you and your whole family and all that. So in order to prove their allegiance, they have to kill their own families and all that. Well, of course, they're not going to want to do that. So they come up with this plot to wipe them out, and it all falls apart. But they ultimately are victorious in it, and it's a great setup of these characters that you could see that continuing. And there's already trouble within their ranks. There's a love triangle and that sort of thing, and they're teenagers and what have you. And certainly, you know that story. You probably lived it, just without all the superpowers and vampirism and stuff. And so it's more complete, cohesive, and stuff. And the way it plays out, I thought, was much more credible within the world that it's developed and all that sort of thing. And so Nightclub for the win. Nightclub, I think, is the superior story to the Ambassadors, which had all there was one artist for Nightclub who was great. The interesting aspects of Ambassador was each issue had its own, some really fantastic artists on all of the issues. And that's fine and all, but I just think the stronger of the two was clearly Nightclub. But apparently they're all going to meet in the big game, which brings together the threads of Miller's a comic book series that he's done. And this calls back to Wanted, which, there was a movie. Forget it. It just wanted to be the Matrix or something. It just bears hardly any resemblance whatsoever to the comic book. The comic book was far superior. It's the strange thing about Wanted is that I remember, I think maybe it was someone writing about it in Wizard or something like that. So this is sort of like the supervillain version to the Watchmen's superheroes, and there's some truth to that. And but with Nemesis, it ties more into it, and from the looks of the big game, it looks like our vampire kids will be thrown into that as well. Not sure how they'll get back to their own storylines that are developed within the series, but within Wanted, it did make reference to multiverse and whatnot, even though apparently Nemesis does live in the Wanted world. As far as the second volume of his series, and so but the multiverse shenanigans would come into it because the superheroes have been wiped out in the Wanted world. So anyway, between the two, yes, Nightclub in the cohesive narrative of it, I think plays out better than it did for the Ambassadors, which is odd because as the Ambassadors the individual stories have their strengths within themselves. It's just the conclusion, at least for this first volume, just kind of fizzles for me. So, but a good effort, still better than most out there. And it did just to satisfy curiosity and whatnot. I think it's worth the trouble to check it out. But if you're going to choose between the two, then I would go with Nightclub. So anyway, there you go. I still expect great things from Mark Miller in the near future, and we'll make note of that on this very program. Oh yes, this one, known as Mr. Nailsin's Wednesday Comics.